Are you looking to become a CISO in 2025 or next year or even a few years' time? If so, this video is for you. But this isn't some cheat sheet formula where if you follow these magical 3 steps, you'll become a CISO in 3 months. The reality is life doesn't work like that, and nor do cybersecurity careers. But through my years as a cybersecurity recruiter, advising people in careers, advising executive level people to hire leadership people, there's a few things I've learned along the way and stories that I've picked up from people in these journeys. So I want to share some of those that I think if you take some actionable advice, follow these steps, are very particular in how you do it, but also consistent with your efforts, you can get so much closer towards your goals. So by the end of this video, I think you have everything you need to essentially follow some steps, take the advice, and get you towards that CISO position. So throughout this video, I'll share some real life examples of things that my friends, people I know, people we've placed in the industry have done to help themselves in their career and help them achieve their goals. So one of the first things is leadership development. So the further you go up in your career in cybersecurity, you end up managing people or leading people. And I think sometimes there's a bit of insular thinking in terms of managing the team itself, which is obviously fundamentally important because you need to manage your team effectively, efficiently, and influence them to essentially do their job, to make the improvements in the organization. But you also need to manage upwards. You need to manage the business. And this is where I think the communication style, way we communicate, the words that we use are so fundamentally important because the skills that you acquired to get you into that leadership role in the first place, they may not be the skills that get you to the next level and the level above that. Ultimately, it's your ability to communicate in the business, across the business, that's going to help influence bigger changes across the organization. So here's ways you could manage upwards and even think about your terminology. Talking about needing new tools to do a certain task. Again, the technical person may just be thinking about if we go and implement these cloud security tools, we can improve our workloads. But ultimately, what are you looking to achieve? The thing you're looking to achieve is maybe to reduce downtime risks. But what's the metric? What's the percentage? What's the impact to the organization? And I love these words so much of impact and outcomes and business impact. So if you can articulate how you can save time and or money to the business, what was the before, what was the after? Once you can talk about things on those terms and even forget cybersecurity terminology, because I think it's very easy to put people off. You know, when we talk about even things like threat actors, what does it actually mean? Like in cybersecurity, we know, but if you're talking to a business person, you know, think about the terminology you would use to your grandparent or someone who understands nothing about IT. Essentially, we're talking about criminals here. Obviously, there's different levels of criminal. Ultimately, that's what they are. So I think if we can try and talk plain English, if that's your language, then I think it gets you closer to that board level conversation and getting them talking and thinking about things from a non-technical perspective. The other thing is identifying key stakeholders. I think it's a really important thing. So who are the influential people? So yes, there are people by job title which will make the decisions, but very often who do they lean on? So you, for example, yourself, you will make your own decisions, but who are you going to talk to? Who's your trusted confidant? And internally in organizations, people will have those as well. So who can be the trusted person influence or people of influence that you may need to build bridges and build relationships with as well? So ultimately, leadership is not just about managing your team, but influencing the decision makers across the organization. Obviously, you've got the board, you've got the stakeholders, key people, but also the key people that influence those people as well. Next is personal branding. For me, I'm very, very big on this because I know the impact, how and what it can make in people's careers and their livelihoods. I think the mistake a lot of people do is they look at LinkedIn and their profile as like a static resume. Let's just say there's room for improvement. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people see your LinkedIn profile, but only a handful of people would ever see your resume. For example, if you choose to send your resume somewhere, then internally talent acquisition, the management or people involved in the hiring decisions would see your resume. So who knows, maybe it's 1, 5, 10 people that might see your resume. If you've got a decent and optimized LinkedIn profile, I'm literally talking 5, 10,000 people over a month or 2 or a few months could see your LinkedIn profile. What do you think that could do for your career as a hiring manager? If you're someone who essentially has a healthy LinkedIn profile and shares content, then ultimately it gets you found by decision makers, it gets you found by people that might be looking for a job as well. So imagine how much easier would it be if you're a hiring manager and people come to you rather than essentially having a hard time filling a job. Ultimately, would you be in a position of applying for jobs or the jobs coming to you? Personally, I know which one I'd rather be in. So one is reactive, one is proactive. It's a nice position to be in if you're having to say no to things as opposed to you're fighting and competing for a job like hundreds of other people, and it's hard to stand out. Plus, the other thing is when you apply for a role, more often than not, those people reviewing it will look at your LinkedIn profile as well. And what's crazy, and I'm being really honest here, is some people have a much better resume than their LinkedIn profile, when personally, I think it should be the other way around. So how can you change that? Well, one, I think you want a profile that gets you found. You want the right keywords, the right information in terms of the types of work that you do, have a bunch of keywords in terms of the skills. Personally, if you can, try and have some metrics in there, show how you are making a difference. Then there's networking. People, I think, sometimes treat networking as transactional rather than genuine network building, relationship building. Ultimately, people in your career, people out there, they can be the key things to unlocking future opportunities for you. So everybody works in an organization and then companies hire people. And if we're referring people into those businesses and we know those people because we trust them, we like them, that's a healthier position to be in than, again, fighting for a role, competing with hundreds of thousands of other people. I think in general, people can harness and utilize their network a lot more. But also, let's bear in mind, a lot of people get jobs through the industry, through networking, and it's hard to mentally go, right, I'm going to go to this event and get a job, because it doesn't really work like that. But the reality is, if you go out there and talk to 20 people, 30 people, you'll have much more of an idea of what's going on, who's hiring, because you may find something that you weren't even aware of, because ultimately there's definitely a fair few jobs that happen in terms of people being hired that never got posted online. I think that's how you get access to this sort of hidden job market, because again, there is a fair percentage. I don't know, there is no official, I think, research on there, but there's definitely a fair percentage of jobs that get hired that have never been advertised. So again, if you can unlock those, that's a great thing for your career. And that's the other thing as well, is I think strategic networking. So you've got the industry, or different industries have different events. Let's say I'm an incident responder. It would make sense to go to an environment where there's other incident responders or SOC managers or incident response managers, because ultimately that's my people. They could be hiring for that type of role, and I could learn a thing or two and contribute as well. But this gets very different the more senior that you go, because if you go to an event, let's say as a CISO, and everybody else is your level or down, then you're not going to get the exposure to the CEOs, the CTOs, the CIOs out there. You need to put yourself in the room with the relevant people too. And then another thing is actually understanding the CISO role. CISO, whatever country you're in, you may say it differently. But I think I touched on it before, or said it many times historically, that the skills that got you to where you are today may not be the skills that you need in the future. And I think this is where we need to go beyond technical expertise, because ultimately the CISO isn't that technical. Maybe they come from a technical background, but unless you're working in an environment where essentially you're a very hands-on CISO, you're managing one or two people, then okay, maybe that title's a bit extravagant as well. But if you're a genuine CISO, you've got a large organization, a fair size budget, maybe you've got 10, 20, 30, 50 or 100 people under you, you're not very hands-on anymore. Your role is more about influence. Your role is about budgets. Your role is about communicating across the organization. Your role is about helping other people make informed decisions. So people really need to work on the softer side of cybersecurity. They need to work on ultimately the skills they haven't acquired yet, but be very strategic in how they acquire them, because ultimately we don't always get a lot of exposure. So I think this is where the peer building, relationship building we've already spoken about is really important, is asking others, how do they achieve that? What training courses, what environments, what events, what things have they gone to that was helpful for their career? One of the things to really be careful is there is so much rubbish out there where you could spend time, energy, or money on things that don't make a lot of sense. I think talking to others, peers out there, can give you advice on terms of what could be helpful and what's not helpful as well. And then you've got the time management and career growth. So ultimately, I think it's really important that you invest the energy and be strategic. So there's a whole bunch of things that we've touched on here that you can do, that you need to do to help you elevate your career and get you towards being in the room, being on the radar for the right people. But you need to dedicate energy to do that. These things just don't happen. So time management is for yourself. Yes, in terms of you as a manager, managing your team, managing upwards, we spoke about that. What about you and your career growth? So putting in time, whether it's weekly, monthly, and being religious in terms of consistent efforts over a period of time. Have a plan in terms of what is your skill gap? How do you acquire those skills? And when you acquire those skills, now you're making it more real. So be accountable. So I'm hoping that if you follow these steps, you can help yourself position yourself towards becoming a CISO, maybe even this year, 2025. Any questions, I'm always available and try and help as many people as possible. But if you want additional help, you want accountability, and essentially looking for someone that could help guide you along this way as well, then essentially we've got a community. We've got cybersec.careers. We're looking to support the future leadership, the future next generation of cybersecurity leaders. Join the community. Within that, we're sharing insights, advice, and also there's coaching programs as well. Any questions, reach out. In the meantime, take care.